My name is Lamin Jai, and this is News Review. Thank you for joining us. Today, coming up for you on the show, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency is looking for a Mauritanian man in connection with hashish seized by the agency as it continues its crackdown on drugs in the country. They are looking for information, really, members of the public to come forward with information that would lead to the arrest of the man there. Citizens Alliance also held a press conference today as part of their monthly engagement with the media. We have a report on that too. I'll be joined later by Nyang Jai to help me really go over some of the issues really that are happening in the country. But before all of this, we will see what the papers are reporting on today. Let's start with the Standard newspaper, and they are reporting that OJ denies reports of Barrow's VP offer, insists he will never work for government again. Silaba Samate denies knowledge of seized cocaine. Port's MD speaks on massive drug bust. Government announces outbreak of bird flu. Senegal in talks to buy COVID vaccine from China's Sinopharm. GAF, that's Gambia Armed Forces, confirms intervening in Gambisara incident involving Senegalese securities. Switzerland announces deportation deal with Gambia. So let's see in detail the stories there. Veteran politician Omar Jallow OJ, a former minister of agriculture in the coalition government who was fired in 2018, has said he was not contacted with an offer to serve as vice president, which is currently occupied by Dr. Aissatou Toure. There were mounting speculations last year that President Barrow was considering rehiring OJ, this time as vice president. At the height of the rumor, OJ was said to be in the United Kingdom, but his political protege, former leader of PPP, Papa Njai, was appointed Gambia's High Commissioner to Nigeria. But speaking to Star FM in a program to be aired Monday, Mr. Jallow dispelled such rumors, adding if he is offered, he would not or would never work in government again. Silaba Samate denies knowledge of seized cocaine. Business tycoon Silaba Samate has categorically denied having any knowledge about the 2 tons of cocaine with a street value estimated at $4 billion is seized at the Banjul port last week. He said that he has no idea about that drug there. Ports MD speaks on massive drug bust. The managing director of Gambia Ports Authority, Usman Jobate, has called for greater alertness following the discovery of nearly 3 tons of cocaine in a salt shipment from Ecuador at the port. Okay, government is also announcing that there is a bird flu. Really, thousands, at least 58,000 birds, like chicken if you like, have died because of a bird flu that has broken out in Senegal there. The Ministry of Agriculture there will hold a press conference tomorrow about that. The Standard is also reporting that Senegal in talks to buy COVID vaccine from China's Sinopharm. GAF confirms intervening in Gambisara. The Gambia Armed Forces spokesperson, Major Lamin Sanyang, has confirmed to the Standard that the military has intervened in an incident involving Senegalese security or forestry officers in Gambisara. Also, deportation. Switzerland announces deportation deal with Gambia. The government of Switzerland has announced an operational cooperation with the Gambia to return her citizens living in the Central European country. Well, I've been trying to get the foreign ministry to speak on that issue there, but as at this moment, all efforts have proved futile. We'll continue to knock on their doors to see if they will really talk on that. The Point is reporting that Senegalese forestry officers entered Gambia territory, wounded one. I think that's reported there by the Standard. Highly pathogenic avian influenza reported in Senegal. Reports intelligence agent recounts ordeal. Switzerland, Gambia signed migration agreement orders. So let's see 1 or 2 stories on the Point. Keba Seka of the State Intelligence Service yesterday testified before the TRRC, explaining the reason for his arrest, detention, and torture by his comrades at the NIA. Okay, so the imams, really, the Raudatul Majalis backed imams have issued a statement saying, calling the Congress there by the imams last weekend, so-called. So the Majmu Atu Raudatul Majalis described the Supreme Islamic Council's so-called Congress that was held over the weekend as illegal, lacked transparency and fairness. So that is their reaction there. That is all for the newspapers. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia is seeking help from the public in arresting a Mauritanian man in connection with hashish, that's cannabis resin, seized by the agency last month, as the agency continues its crackdown on drugs in the country. More in this report. 48-year-old Mauritanian national Sidi Elamin Mohamed is being hunted down, and members of the public are asked to volunteer information. Days after the seizure of a massive quantity of cocaine at the port, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency said on Wednesday it had seized over 500 blocks of cannabis resin or hashish. The agency is calling it unprecedented. Personnel of the League's West Coast Region Combo North Divisional Command on Sunday, 20th December 2020, successfully interdicted huge quantities of cannabis resin hashish at Old Yundum and Brunswick Phase 1 respectively. This seizure happened after 48 hours of diligent undercover operation, according to the agency. Notably, the seizure of 502 blocks weighing 225 kilograms, 760 grams of hashish is unprecedented, according to the League. Ibrahim Abite, while in the company of Usman Kante, was nabbed with 8 blocks that he came to collect from one of the trucks parked inside a property located at Old Yundum. Subsequently, operatives discovered 396 blocks concealed in 11 wooden pallets in a green Scania truck with registration number KM7989C parked in the same property. Further probing into the matter, operatives recovered 98 blocks at a residence in Brunswick Phase 1. One Sidi and Dow occupies the said property, according to the League. Initial investigations linked a person of interest who fled jurisdiction. According to the agency, their counterpart in Senegal clutched him in Dakar on Tuesday, 29 December 2020 and handed him over on Friday, 1st January 2021. Prior to this seizure, the Special Operations Squad of the League seized 26 blocks of cannabis resin hashish weighing 12 kilograms, 150 grams at the residence of one Mr. Bai Modu Njai. Mr. Njai is a resident of Taft Bruford Gardens. Operatives recovered a pistol with 5 live rounds from him, according to the League. Initial findings revealed that the hashish seized from Mr. Njai was sourced from the consignment of hashish seized on 20th December 2020. Investigation into the matter continues, while Mr. Usman Kante, male 30 years old, Mr. Sidian Dao, male 28 years old, and Mr. Ibrahim Bite, male 52 years, are helping officers with the investigations.
Taft Africa Global presents the new Tulip Gardens. Taft Tulip Gardens is set to comprise service plots in sizes ranging from 220 to 570 meters square. Deposit as low as $83,600 is only an 18-month interest-free payment plan with only 20% deposit on the service plots. Please contact 376-2333 or 776-2333. Free. Taft Africa.
So, Citizens Alliance also held a press conference today as part of the party's monthly engagement with the media. Sergio Brito reports.
The Citizens Alliance Party on Thursday, January 14, 2021, held their second monthly press briefing to share information with the public and to state their position on some of the recent happenings the country is grappling with, particularly issues of national interest. Addressing the recent voter registration postponement by the Independent Electoral Commission, Dr. Cisse challenges the IEC to make it clear what logistical reasons led to the indefinite postponement of this crucial process. The CA leader said his party did its own investigation, and this is what they found out.
The findings that we have, based on our investigations, are that the IEC wanted to single source the procurement process. the procurement for the materials needed for the elections, the IEC, as usual, 2011 and 2016, they did single sourcing to one company. And in 2021, they also want to do the same single sourcing, but the Ministry of Finance said no, it has to go through a tender process so we can give chance to other companies who have the capacity and the capability to also provide this material, so that's a fair process. And then a bidding process started, tender process. 4 companies tendered their bids. One is ESI, a Canadian company. The second is Damalog from Germany. We have Ekemp from China. All these have international companies, and we have one Gambian-owned company called Smart Business Group, the Gambia. However, the first issue with regards to this whole scenario was that the IEC did not want or would not allow a joint venture. What does that mean? It means that a Gambian company who lacks the reference and the capacity to provide these materials would want to partner with a foreign company who has the experience and the capacity and the reference. But the IEC says no, no joint venture. It is either you come full and provide or you don't. So it means technically Gambian companies were removed from the entire process. However, one Gambian company, Smart Group, nonetheless, because they had already bought the documents, they tendered their bid. Now, the second thing was that the company the IEC wanted to give the contractor, which is ESI, based on our findings, we need some clarifications from the IEC and also from GPPA, because if these things should be clear. We understand, we are not saying that is the case, but we understand that ESI was not the most qualified company. In fact, they are not the most financially responsive of all the companies that bidded. Third, that this same ESI was the same company that supplied IEC election materials in 2011 and 16 under a different company name called Code. And they went bankrupt and they changed their name to ESI. That should be very clear. They supplied the materials for elections in 2011 and 16, single source, their name was Code, went bankrupt, and now they are called ESI. Now, based on our findings also, IEC had a very bad experience with this company called Code. So the question is, why would we want to deal with the same company?
Dr. Cisse also urged the Independent Electoral Commission to do things right, as errors like these could easily threaten the stability of the country.
What is important for us as a party and also as citizens is that elections are no jokes. They are life and death issues. They are about democracy. They are about security and peace and stability. Therefore, we must get it right. And our position is very clear, that we urge the IEC to make sure that whatever they do it right, and they look at the greater interest of the nation.
Sharing his thoughts on what many call the biggest drug seizure in the history of the Gambia, Dr. Cisse said Gambia has become one of the biggest transits and storage points for drugs. While he admits that the issue of drugs has increasingly become a regional problem, it should be a cause for concern for the Gambia, considering how small the country is.
But for the Gambia, as small as it is, for us to be having this amount of drugs in our country is a serious cause for concern and has serious implications, for one, for the security of this country. Having tons of cocaine stored in the Gambia, waiting to be transited to its final destination, can attract criminal gangs into this country. It is also not good for the country because what it does is it wanes investor confidence. A country known to be a drug hub, serious investors want to go to those countries because those countries are unstable. Those countries are always unstable. The other thing also has to do with security. like I said. And finally, our citizens are not safe because these drugs, like I tell you, are not to be consumed. Gambians cannot consume 3 tons of cocaine. We don't have the market in the country. So Gambia has now become a storage point because they cannot grow it here, but now it is going to be stored here. Now when it is stored here, it means it has to go somewhere. Who takes it there? They are going to rely on our young people who need money. Especially those in the diaspora who have the European passports and can travel. They'll use them to transport these drugs, and our young innocent people who are here frustrated with no job. So it is a very serious problem that we must take very seriously. And we, on our part, we urge the government to strongly empower the law enforcement agencies, especially the D-League. They must be empowered because why? They need the necessary equipment and the technology to be able to trace, track, arrest, and prosecute these people who are involved in this kind of activities.
And like many other politicians and Gambians outraged about the drug scandal, Dr. Cisse calls for an urgent investigation into the matter and bring whoever is found culpable before the law.
Our position is very clear. We urge strongly the government to really investigate this drugs issue and make sure the perpetrators are brought to justice and set a very good example. Because if we don't set good examples and let people go scot-free, that causes impunity. The transnational criminal gangs, you know now, Gambia has weak institutions. They are weak security institutions. It becomes a very easy target. That is what they are looking for. They are looking for countries with weak institutions. Look at the countries they target: Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Gambia. They know. They don't go to countries with strong institutions, with strong security infrastructure. They don't. They know this country is vulnerable. It's easy to buy your way in and out. These are the countries they target. In the process, they destroy our countries.
The presidential aspirant also touched on other issues like the recent maternal deaths in the country, urging government to invest more in the health sector. Saja Brito reporting.
Watanbe, brought to you by Afrisa.
Be part of the amazing conversations with Gambia's greatest minds and personalities. Get ready to be entertained, inspired, and motivated on the Watanbe platform. Plus, stand a chance of winning the shopping of your life. Call or SMS 1010 for $3 is only to win cash prizes and a free shopping spree.
Join Watanbe live on GRTS and social media on Mondays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Kailin New Watan.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow. Dares to follow.
Very well, welcome back. The past days and weeks have been filled, peppered with a lot of huge or big events, from drugs seizures there to IEC voter registration delay to even deportation. And that is why I'm joined by Mr. Nyangjai today, a commentator, to really help me go over some of the issues that have been happening in the country. Done by Mr. Njai, thank you for coming.
Thanks, and once again, thank you for having me, and good evening, good afternoon, viewers, wherever you are around the globe.
Okay, let us start with the issue of drugs. I mean, I know the authorities have been confiscating or intercepting drug. Drug has always been a problem, not just in the Gambia, but around the world. But the recent happenings, I mean, these over 2 tons of cocaine seized at our port, massive, and what is at stake here is the image of our country. When you heard about this, what was your reaction?
Well, I wasn't surprised because a lot has been happening in the country and a lot of transactions have been happening in the country in terms of investments. But you need to understand one thing. The geopositioning of Gambia, meaning the geographic location of Gambia, makes it very attractive for Latin American countries, Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, to use Gambia as a transshipment hub. Why? These people are opportunists who are always looking for soft targets. What's a soft target? A country with either a complicit government to partake in the process or a country where you can buy your way to partake in the process. And Bissau has been the primary hub. And we have seen how Nino Vieira was killed by drug cartels for failure to deliver based on arrangements.
The arrangements or the deal or agreement.
So, Mali became a good point. But of late, the northern borders of Mali are very fortified in terms of insurrection and others. So Bissau, Senegal were the places they were using. And of late, we have seen Gambia, quote unquote, being a target. And I think this is the end result, seeing Gambia being used as a transshipment hub, and it's very scary, to say the least.
As things unraveled, things come out, you could see that it is Gambians that are allegedly said to be involved. What do you make of that?
I'm not surprised, once again. Like I said, this is a transnational business, but the people who own the product, you need to understand, no one has the capacity to go and buy 3 tons, ship it into a transshipment country for further or onward transmission to Western Europe. No one can buy that amount. So therefore, they work with the cartels, and the cartels want people with good social standing or good political connection so that they can get security, so that they can have ease of access and peace of mind.
But what do you make of the government's role in it all? Interception, yes, they seized it. The Drug Law Enforcement Agency issued statements, yes. But you go outside, people think that the government has not done enough in terms of coming out to speak.
Absolutely.
To speak on the efforts that are underway.
Well, I love to give my government the credit and the due as and when they have it. But this drug bust, I think significant chunk of the credit must go to Interpol. Maybe, had it not been for the Interpol, we would not have heard about this. And maybe this is not the first consignment through this enterprise that has been to the Gambia. We don't know. But thank you to Interpol for really alerting and taking part in the seizure. What I expect from my government, that such a significant or colossal amount being busted in the Gambia, not only the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, but the highest office in this land should come out and tell Gambians that we, the nation, has zero tolerance to the importation of such substances to our shores, much more using it as a transshipment hub, because it has serious economic, security, and social implications to the country. One of the most serious economic implications are when these people sell their drugs, most of it may leave, and that's money laundering, but what is left, meaning the residual for the facilitators, will fuel our real estate boom, will fuel other business because they're trying to hide their illicit, ill-gotten gains. And that impacts the economy as it relates to inflation. Security. If these people have this much stored, trust me, in as much as they may rely on just the peaceful nature of the country, they will use their arms and ammunition to guard what they have, just to make sure that nobody comes after them. Thirdly, if you bring 3 tons of cocaine, rest be assured 200 to 300 kilos will be distributed locally, whether you like it or not. And that is bad socially, from prostitution to crime, again, with our youths, hopelessness. So, the gamut of things that can happen with this are immense. And therefore, I expect our government at the highest levels to come out and make a statement to reassure Gambians that we as a nation happen to have a zero tolerance for such a thing.
And when it comes to the fight against drugs, all hands must be on deck. Everybody has a role to play. What do you make of the role of the citizens? Because when this happened, what the authorities sought was to rely on members of the public to give them information regarding, for example, a person of interest, Banta Keita. But no one really came forward to, and this is a very small country. I made a lot of findings, a lot of investigations. I was able to realize or understand, I was made to understand that the man was in fact in the country at the time of the seizure, to the time of the confiscation, to the aftermath, he was still here. And really, people got to know him, and people got to know where he is. But nobody really came out to give any tips or any clues to the authorities. What do you make of the role of the citizens in the fight against drugs?
Well, before the citizens are engaged, their government need to engage them. You see, this is not the first drug bust over the past 3 to 4 years. We've heard of a Lebanese company. Not much has come out of it. This is the first time I have seen a person being named and even put his face or her face on television and in the newspapers. Have you heard of the Lebanese who was caught, or the Lebanese company that were caught with cocaine some time back through importation of sugar or whatever from Brazil? You heard about it, right? Did you see a name or a face, or have you? No, I'm asking a question. Have you?
I have not. Maybe they are now stepping up their game.
No,
maybe,
no, it's,
I don't know.
that's not it.
Or they are playing,
no, let's be fair. It's not selective justice. We have misplaced priorities. What are our misplaced priorities? The government of the Gambia, through its drug law enforcement agency, they're going after the wrong fish. What's the wrong fish? The youths parading and carrying marijuana out in the streets. Those people are not the problem of our drug problem in this country. The people with our drug problem are the ones with the cocaine, the hashish, and others. So the efforts they're putting after these young people in the ghettos of these countries and the slums of this country, just for possession, that's the problem, number one. Number two, go into our criminal justice system and see how many young Gambian youths have been criminalized for the possession, even if it's for distribution of marijuana, oftentimes not even $60,000 worth. So the energies are misplaced, and the energies must be put on the transnational trade, because what those boys are doing is not transnational. It's locally grown marijuana being sold, and sold for pittance. And that's not a problem for our country. The problem is the illicit international drugs coming in. So let's government reprioritize their priorities. Then maybe the citizenry will know that this government, or any other government for that matter, I am not blaming this government, but I'm blaming the culture of going after the wrong culprits. The big fish who are doing serious international crimes. No one hears about them, but I think people know about them.
And also, when you talk about drugs, Mr. Njai, you realize that those who are involved, in most cases, are often ahead of, for example, those that are fighting it, the authorities. Because these are powerful people, they have influence, they got money. And I interact a lot with, for example, officials of the league, drug law enforcement, and what they will tell you is that, listen, because they rely on people to give them information about certain drug dealers, those that are very powerful and have money.
Then they're not doing their job.
But I mean, because you need that, you need molds everywhere.
No.
You need.
But you see,
you don't believe that.
If you go to the US, the DEA, they blend into society and become active players themselves. And in playing, they know who the players are. So I mean, they know better. And you know what? If they're interested, they will know how to go about it. Look, this Banta Keita, if that is his name, he is just a low operator in this value chain. Why? The kingpins never touch, never use the phone or anything. They have people who push buttons for them. So the amount of drugs that have been shipped to the Gambia, most likely Banta Keita is nothing but an operative. There are people bigger than Banta Keita. But I think the first thing, before they even call anybody, look at Banta Keita. Look at his known numbers. Go to the operators. Go back 6 months and look at his top 15, top 20 people he associates with on a daily, weekly basis. Go on a second layer and look at those people and also look at their top 10. Pretty soon the government will have a web. Where there is a will, there will be a way. I don't know how willing they are to get to the bottom of this.
Certainly that can give one clues really as to I mean, some of the people that someone like him interact with. I was also made to understand by the drug law enforcement officials that they've in fact done that, and they're trying to get that information. But do you think that alone is enough? Because drugs can also sometimes be a very, I mean, so if someone is caught, I mean, trafficking in drugs, that attracts penalties, serious consequences. So do you think that would be enough? Or just, for example, Banta Keita will be calling Nyanjai, and you go to Gamsel and they give you printouts.
No, but it depends on the frequency of call to Nyanjai. But secondly, we have international tools to go after these people from financial transaction, etc., etc. And Gambia, working with the Interpol, gives us the opportunity to have access to these tools. I think there may be light at the end of the tunnel, provided that our government wants to get to the bottom of this. But also, in the absence of good and credible information, the rumor mill thrives. And when the rumor mill thrives, it becomes the reality for the people. And the Gambian population generally are saying today that this Banta Kaira has been, has been aided and abetted by people within the system for him to just be able to disappear in thin air. That may not be true. But in the absence of the government coming to counter these innuendos, it becomes the reality out in the street. And that's why our government must be mindful that they need to be talking to people. Don't expose what the investigations are unveiling, but reassure the citizenry that we, the government, are making sure that we do something, because we have zero tolerance for such activities in our home front.
When you also look at Gambia, I mean, and you see how far behind we are when it comes to technology, when it comes to advancement, technological advancement. These containers passed through Europe, and then it wasn't detected that cocaine was stuck in one of them.
Says who?
Maybe it was detected, but maybe also, because there are a lot of theories out there that are being made. One of the theories would be, okay, in fact, those people, they knew, but they want to track where the final destination of this, that is one of the theories that is out there.
I won't even call it a theory, I will call it the fact. Because if Interpol, it will not be a coincidence that the container is here and Interpol just happened to be here.
But they are saying the Interpol is not in the Gambia. I spoke with the DLEAG and they dismissed that.
Well, I can show you a photo.
Yes.
I have a photo on my phone of a white guy wearing an Interpol jacket at the port when the container was open. I have the photo on my phone and I will give it to you, and I want you to put it out there for your viewers to see. So to say that Interpol wasn't in the Gambia, it's a bold-faced lie, because Interpol is in the Gambia. Gambia is part of Interpol.
Of course.
So to tell you that Interpol is not in the Gambia is a misrepresentation of the facts. And you don't have to be white to be part of the Interpol team. You can even be a Gambian. So I think the facts need to be stated as they are and for what they're worth.
But do you think Interpol really want this container to be arrested or seized in the Gambia? Do you think that was really the plan at the outset?
Well, naturally, and I will tell you why. If this container originated from Latin America, Ecuador, Brazil, or wherever, and they, intercepted it there, not much would have happened. That would have been a dead trail. The best thing to do, allow the container to be shipped with a consignee, place of destination, and you do your bust there. Once you do your bust there, you're not stopping there. Maybe if you happen to apprehend someone, you will know from the Western Europe side who their accomplices are, and you will know from the Latin American side who their collaborators are. Then you draw a web. You see, I think we need to understand, sometimes Interpol or even security agency will let you pass. It builds confidence for the smugglers. Equally, after you pass, they will trail you and see who your next beneficiaries are. So maybe this has been going on for a while, and this is the time that Interpol was ready to step in.
What do you make of the image of the country there? How damaging is this in terms of the country's image? Because you could see in the CA press conference, for example, CA leader Dr. Ismail said that no investor would want to come to a country. Even investment-wise, it's bad, because no serious investor would want to invest his money into a country where there is drugs.
Absolutely. See, in life, all of us, we don't get what we deserve. We get what we negotiate. The image of Gambia has, a collective responsibility to all of us, and equally, it has an individual accountability from all of us. If drugs are seized in the Gambia, and you happen to travel out of Gambia with a Gambian passport, trust me, the level of scrutiny you will go through will be more. Like Dr. Caesar said, security will be an issue. Investment will be an issue. And the worst is international financial transactions, wiring money from point A to point B. That will affect trade in the Gambia. Once it affects trade in terms of cost, it affects the prices of goods. it's the poor Gambian who suffers at the end of the day. But 3 tons of cocaine anywhere in the world, shipped in internationally, the cartels must have reassurance from people who believe they can protect those goods and merchandise in that very country.
And while the country is trying to decipher, to really chew over or to come to terms with this, then there is this other press release from the Drug Law Enforcement Agency saying, okay, over 500 blocks of hashish was also, but this was what was arrested, confiscated before the drug seizure. And really it would appear that it's quite concerning to see our country being turned into a place where there is too much drugs. I mean, in terms of the impact, the social impact, because I remember there was a time when Latika, for example, tagged me in a post saying that you have a lot of Gambians, young Gambians, who are consuming drugs, who are taking drugs. And when I say drugs, hard drugs. What do you make of that? The fact that nowadays, Gambia, you have a lot of people that are turning to drugs.
But you see, the Gambians consuming those hard drugs are the residual effects of these overall transactions or transshipment. 3 tons of cocaine to the Gambia, rest be assured 2.8 tons will be evacuated out of the Gambia to destinations unknown, mostly Western Europe. But I think we have a bigger problem than that. Drugs has been a perennial problem for the Gambia for the longest of time. We have been a hub for Western Europe for the longest of time. What is the problem? The problem is there is complicity. What's the complicity? From the importation of the drugs to the Gambia, to the transactions locally of buying it, and also reshipping it by air out of our airports to Western Europe. Whether we like it or not, we need to accept that we have security lapses, and these security lapses may be complicity, meaning people are complicit willfully. I will not say it's lack of technology, because we know in this country who the dope boys are. We know in this country who the movers and the mules are most of the time. It's a small environment. So if you and I can know that, the law enforcers must be in a better position to know. But inducement is the problem. Because if I happen to have 10 kilos of coke, wanting to take it to Europe, street value, 50,000 pounds a kilo, that's 500,000 pounds. If I happen to give someone 20,000 pounds, that suitcase, as far as this leg of the journey is concerned, from Yundum Airport outbound, they will turn a blind eye. So the risk I'm taking is outside of Gambia. And that's the complicity that has been going on and is still going on. The state may not be actively involved under the umbrella of the state, but maybe people in positions of power are really reneging on their responsibilities to country.
Away from that, there is this announcement by the Switzerland government that they have entered into a deal with the Gambia government to deport, if you like. They call it operational cooperation, if you like. That is what, these are diplomats, so they like to choose words that really would not cause any, problems at all. But they are calling it operational cooperation, but what they are saying, they want to cooperate with the government in terms of returning some of the Gambians really in that country. And since when this thing came out, I received a lot of calls from people in Switzerland, people in Europe really, to say that the Gambia government has now finally agreed that Gambians be sent back. When you heard this, what was your take on this? Well, and the fact that the Gambia government has been quite mute.
Well, a deal is a transaction. A transaction happens to have a willing buyer and a willing seller of a service. Switzerland wants to take their undesirables out, particularly Gambians, on this particular transaction. What is the government of the Gambia getting in return to get their returnees? We don't know. And here is it. A government that keeps its people in the dark is a government not to be trusted. A government that doesn't negotiate great deals for its people is a government not to be trusted. The problem we're faced with is not Switzerland wanting to deport our people. We are a country with far and few opportunities for a young and growing population. Yes. So if you want to sign a deal with Switzerland, you better make sure that Switzerland in return gives you good deals so that you can deter these youthful people from trying to access the shores of Europe for greener pasture. If the government is doing that, I will say kudos. And if that's what they're doing, why not come out and speak to the people? Our government, silence means consent. And in this, they are consenting to what the Swiss authorities want. But on a bigger scale, the menace that Europe is facing with migrants from Africa is all because of unfair and imbalanced trade practices internationally. So our governments, particularly with the EU ACP countries, we should try and negotiate better trade terms so that our people here will not have to venture out but can make decent livelihoods within their social circles and environments.
Are you for or against deportation of Gambians? I mean, Gambians whose asylum have failed. What would you subscribe to? Do you want them sent back or do you want them to remain? Because it would appear that those whose asylum have not succeeded, have failed, still want to remain in these countries.
Well, you need to understand one thing. I will put myself in the shoes of the Swiss government. When you have undesirables in your country, it adds social pressure to your social systems, housing, crime, everything else. Do I want that for my Gambia? The answer is no. Would I want it for another country? The answer is no. But what is the remedy to such a thing? The government of the Gambia must be bold and look at Europe in the face, not only Switzerland. Say, Europe, if the mountain don't go to Mohammed, Mohammed will surely come to the mountain. Yes. My youths are leaving the shores of Gambia, heading out there, one, because of bad governance. They will not accept it, but it's the fault of our government. Bad governance and planning for a youthful population. But equally, unfair global trade has pushed a lot of these youths out there because there is hopelessness and destitution. So therefore, the government of the Gambia must find ways and means to encourage Europe to invest significantly so that our youths can make a livelihood out of where they're from. Yes. So yes, I understand where Switzerland is coming from. I don't like it, but if I were in their shoes, the first role of being a human being is to preserve yourself. So that's what the Swiss government and authorities are doing.
What they are trying to do.
Precisely.
I have tried, but when it comes to this government, they are terrible in terms of speaking, in terms of clarifying some of these issues. When this thing came out, there was a lot of noise. I tried to speak to them. Yet, to this moment, to this hour, I could not speak to any one of them. They just simply don't want to speak on this issue.
Well,
what is there to hide? In fact, I contacted the office of the vice president since she's the one who led the delegation, but I was told that I need to write. That is the protocol. I will need to write, and that will take to the end of 2021 before they would even get back to me.
Well, it shows again.
In a situation so pressing as this one.
You see, we need to understand one thing. This government, some may see me as a critic, but I'm not a critic. I hate bad behavior. Without us, the people, there won't be no government. Therefore, this government is answerable to the people. And if the people have queries, they should come out and allay our fears and set the record straight. But so long as this government want to be silent or elusive, we see them as culprits. We see them as people who are enabling what's happening. All I wanted this government to do is to come out and say, yes, we went to Switzerland. We signed a deal to make sure that these youths come back. But equally, we have asked the Swiss government to help in resettling them and giving them skills so that they can be active members of society. I will love that because I don't want to see any Gambian to be destitute in a foreign country.
Now, away from that, let's also talk about the issue of the elections. I mean, this year is going to be very important. We will choose a new leader, whether that is President Adama Barrow or a new hand. That is up to the Gambian people. But the IEC was supposed to start registering Gambians this month, only for them to, I think it was supposed to start, today is the 14th, yes. It was supposed to start today, and then they came out to say that they've abandoned that because of logistical challenges. Again, it proved really difficult to get the IEC to talk to Gambians regarding what is going on in terms of the logistical issues that they are talking about. What do you make of the IEC in terms of registering Gambians, but not just that, but also to do things right, as the CA leader would put it?
See, the problem again is poor institutional culture. The people we entrust in positions of power, I'm not even talking about the president, I'm talking about just generally public servants. They don't feel answerable to the very people who entrust them with power. The IEC, to look at Gambians in the face and just give us, we are suspending this indefinitely because of logistical problems, and we, the people, are not told what these logistical problems are, shows their disdain, shows their contempt on us, we the people. But then again, sometimes I think it's the people who should get up and make sure that these people understand where power lies. Yes, you're quite right. This year is a very defining moment for the Gambia, and unfortunately, 48 months after our glorious, beating of Jammeh for him to leave, we are yet to find a path that is showing us light at the end of the tunnel in terms of building a new country. We may go into election without a good constitution, term limits, redistricting of or redemarcating of constituents, yes, and also defining who a Gambian is to be eligible to vote. These four things are very important. And 48 months after the departure of Jammeh, we are yet still trying to find a way to that promised land we wanted to be. And the very reason we booted Jammeh out. Therefore, I feel like our transition has failed. It has failed because the essence of getting Jammeh out, nothing has changed other than disappearance, murder, and arrest. That's not what we deserve. We deserve way better than that. We want a better social contract, and we want a more responsive government to the needs of the people and an equitable constitution to give Gambians their rights. You are a media practitioner and you know of the seditious laws in our current constitution and how they can impact your work, how it can affect what you want to do diligently as a media practitioner. 48 months after the booting out of Jammeh, we are still faced with those draconian issues. Who is not serious about the transition? It begs an answer, and the people know where the answer lies.
You are saying that the transition has failed, but now I want you to get into the mind of the president. The president clearly thinks that he's done a superb job, a wonderful job.
Yes.
And you are saying that he has failed, or the transition has failed.
Yes, the transition has
right
failed.
Here and who is wrong here?
He is wrong, and I'll tell you why the president has failed. The president was elected on a mandate. The mandate was not to build roads, give us more electricity, or all this nonsense that's happening in country. The essence, the gist of booting out Jammeh was to create strong institutions, right the wrongs of the past, give us good documents of a constitution, and make sure that we build a better Gambia on that foundation. The Jammeh Commission has been whitewashed. Culprits are now active participants in government. People have paid their way out. End of it. So basically it's impunity. I mean, people that were named, nothing happened. Serious security sector reform is yet to take root. So the only thing left, well, our constitution draft basically died, tried to be resurrected, but it doesn't look like it will be resurrected because self-perpetuation, I think, is the Achilles heel of that document. People don't want self-perpetuation. And the president must be mindful, forget about his rights. The mere fact that Gambians hated the self-perpetuating style of Jammeh and say that going forward, we want anyone who is going to be our leader not to serve more than 2 years. Whether it's taking away his right as one person, He should look at the rights of the 2 million Gambians who wanted to end self-perpetuation December 1st by rewarding him with that seat called the presidency.
Now, when you look at this new process there, the issue of inviting Dr. Goodluck Jonathan to come in and then talk to all the parties, all the stakeholders, to really finding a deal around the distressed draft there. But in terms of the impartiality of the independent mediator there, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, the impartial, because really clearly, I attended a press conference organized by International IDEA. This is the intergovernmental organization that has been hired to do this job in partnership with Dr.
Hired by who?
Invited by the government or hired by the government to come in.
So where is the consensus?
Yes, yes. And it would appear that there are political parties that want the president to, be able to run for 2 5-year terms under the new constitution, and this has been made known to Dr. Goodluck.
Which political parties?
They wouldn't name the political parties because what they are saying is that they've registered so much success, but they wouldn't want to speak on all of it because it could jeopardize.
I can tell you one thing, and I will say it on camera.
Yes.
That with all respect to Goodluck Jonathan, this is not an issue Goodluck Jonathan can fix, because there is a principle here, and that principle is as cardinal as booting out Jammeh. 2 terms for any individual, whether it's Adama Barrow, Ousainou Darboe, Halifa Sallah. It's not about what's written. You see, contracts can be explicit and implied. The implied contract Adama Barrow had with Gambians is that the change we want is to put our leaders on the straight and narrow. 2 terms and no more. And I think that's the yearning and will of any good meaning Gambian. And if Adama Barrow respects the aspirations of our people, he should not wait to say that I am accorded this by law. Morality supersedes legality, and his moral conscience should guide his actions.
And I have been, approached with claims that really this draft constitution is headed for further misery. Another logjam, if you like. It will get to the National Assembly because
it cannot get to the National Assembly.
In the next 3 months, the plan by the government is to make sure that by the next 3 months, this charter moves back to the National Assembly. But it would appear, some of the claims that I am getting is that what they want to do is to expunge that issue, the so-called retroactivity.
It's not going to happen.
That is what they want to scrap that and then make sure that part is amended, and then they send it back. But now you have these other parties that really are not going to buy into that.
It's not about those parties not buying into it. You see, I am very emotional when I talk about this particular thing. We all knew what we suffered, and we suffered that because of self-perpetuation. The more you stay in power, the blinder you get. And I think 10 years is enough. Whatever you want to do, if you cannot do it in 10 years, you might as well forget it. But if Adama Barrow wants the cohesiveness of this society, wants the prosperity of this nation, and have good intent for the people of this country, he must say that the overwhelming will of the people supersedes my personal interest and desire to be the president-in-chief. And how sure is he that he is going to be voted next term or even the subsequent term? But the issue is,
at least according to his supporters.
Yeah, but this is not about his supporters.
Is in the bag already.
Well, that's good for him, and congratulations in advance, Mr. President. But Mr. President, remember from whence you came and what the people of this country has done for you. If you do so, you will make sure you find us a bridge for us to cross. President Barrow must have been the one who united the country. Why? If you look at the total votes that Kande and Jammeh got, this country is highly polarized and highly divided. So his primary ambition should have been to bring our diverse peoples together. But Gambia is more divided today than ever before. And I cry in my heart because we suffered so much to get to where we are today. This is not what we deserve collectively.
What do you, in terms of human behavior, what do you make of the Gambian? Because human beings can be quite strange, And I watched, Uganda, they are voting in a presidential elections today. Their president, Museveni, in an interview with Amampo, when Amampo put to him that you have stayed 36 years in power, But he defended that to say that it is democracy. So long people put you there, people vote for you and say, okay, you ask, as long as people vote for you and they are happy with what you are doing and they vote for you, however long you stay in power, he is calling it that's democracy. And it would appear in the Gambia, I mean, I interviewed one of the president's loyal supporters here, and what he told me is that their party, the NPP, will be in power for 70 years. But also, you will also see, if you are a close observer of events, you will see that a lot of Gambians have been flocking to the president in terms of supporting his support base. You could see that it is growing. But so what do you have to say about the human behavior? Human beings, especially in Africa.
I'm coming there, and I think the problem is lack of moral conviction and conscience. Poverty is a tool and an instrument and a weapon preferably used by politicians. Rice, token sums of money are as good as bullets, because we have seen it in that by-election in, what's the name of the place? Nyamina?
Nyamina East.
It's a shame.
Or West, sorry.
It's a shame. But we need to understand one thing. Adama Barrow, if he happens to love Gambia and has the primary interest of this country at heart, for whatever that's left of his term, he should not worry about roads. He should worry about building bridges. Building bridges between our diverse peoples. Building bridges between communities that are torn apart because of politics. Building bridges to mend the wrongs of the past. The Gambian, like the Wolofs will say, futoy nyutak, is very prevalent in our society. Opportunism. Look at the enablers of Yahya Jammeh, the proximity, their close proximity to power today, even within the cabinet. Does that surprise you? No. It's the nature of the Gambian. The average Gambian lacks the fortitude to have that conscience to say, I'd rather eat sand than compromise my integrity.
And the issue of flip-flopping, I think that is where it would come. You would see a Gambian who would support a particular politician. I will die for you, I support you, I love you. And he will be loyal, The next minute, that person's time
they're not loyal. They're loyal to the interest.
And then start saying the same thing.
They are loyal to the interest. That's why it's called convenient apologists. Nyang Jai loves to name names, and I will name a Sidin Jai. I will name a Dahaba. No. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's call a spade a spade. The problem in this country is conscience. You see, religion is a contract between God and man. Conscience is a contract between man and himself. And a lot of Gambians don't have conscience, period.
And there is also this rift, if you like, or uneasiness, if you like, too, between those really who supported President Barrow in 2016. They were out, they campaigned.
I supported President Barrow. Not because I know him, not because he had something to offer.
Exactly.
I supported him because I vested my hope of a new Gambia in him, and he was the only alternative I believed that could have allowed us to cross the bridge. So I vested my hopes in him, but all those hopes are dashed.
Exactly.
And that's why Nyang Jai today is bitter and angry, because I feel like I have been railroaded. I feel like the dream I had for that Gambia has been dashed.
That is where I was coming from, because you are someone who supported him at the outset. Now you feel disappointed. You are frustrated because what you expected, you didn't see that. But you have people who have come in newly to support him. People who were never there at the outset. They never voted for him. They never campaigned for him. If it were left to those people, Jammeh would have still been here, for example.
Yes.
But these are the people who are now supporting him, who are branding you and I as enemies of the state.
I supported Adama Barrow, not the individual, but what he represented for me as a citizen of this going concern, that he was going to help me usher in a new dawn. Well, he has perpetuated where Jammeh left off, minus arrest and killings. Not much has changed. So the more things change, the more Gambia remain the same, and it's painful.
Now, one last thing before I let you go. I mean, it's an election year. In terms of the movements and the activities by the various political parties, including the NPP, of course, the president will launch his party and the party launching, but also Congress, which is coming at the end of this month. So there will be a lot of movement among all the political parties. But in terms of the Gambian voter, what do you think the Gambian voter should look out for in terms of messaging, in terms of what these political parties, because sometimes these political parties or politicians come to you with emptiness. They don't really tell you anything to convince you that they are the right candidate for the job.
You see, once again, the Wolofs will say, in recent times, our politics is synonymous to what the Wolofs will say, segal mawarla. Just like a donkey. We become the donkey, they sit on it and move. There has been a lot of political jockeying for positioning. Parties that are irrelevant, but yet still want to be invited to the dinner table. They know they cannot pull or poll significant votes to make a difference. They already know that, but they are positioning themselves to be invited to the dinner table because if an Aissatou Touré can do it, they can do it.
Yes, yes.
That's one.
Yes.
That's why we're seeing the mushrooming of political parties in the Gambia. But the voter,
yes.
You see, caveat emptor, buyer beware, voter beware.
Yes.
The Gambian voter must not allow himself or herself to be prostituted once again. A promise is a comfort to a fool.
Yes.
We have been taken for a ride. So right now, what we need to look for is to come together, galvanize our resolve as Gambians, get a government to get this particular government out and kickstart a genuine transition. What is a genuine transition? Rebuild the institutions of state. A genuine transition will be a transition that will fix the wrongs of the past. You have hardly seen Nyang Jai writing on his social media page, asking for a demand from the state to pay me for a house at the beach at Batakunku that Yaya Jame bulldogs. I've lost over $7 million and I'm not complaining because I expected the government not to wait for me to complain but do the right thing to me by compensating me and giving me back what's mine and paying for the damages. But that's not what they're interested in. And that's why we need a transition to right the wrongs of the past. Not only for me, but an overwhelming majority of Gambians who were victims of the 22-odd brutal years of Jammeh. And that hasn't been done. So victims are still victims and victims will be victims post-election 2021.
Sanyang, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I hope that maybe some other time we will invite you.
Always a pleasure.
On News Review again. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So that is it from the Njais.
Indeed.
from the Njais. So we will be back next week. Until then, my name is Lamin Jai. Thank you for being there.